Were you on our cell phones? Oh, okay.
Don't have to put us on in case some people go to ask some questions.
You can't do that on your phone.
Goodness. I'm on a podcast. I gotta call you back.
We light it up like sauce in the sauce in the sauce. We light it up like sauce in the sauce in the sauce. Fli-City got some dogs in it, dogs in it, dogs. Fli-City come off authentic, authentic. We light it up like sauce in the sauce in the sauce. We light it up like sauce in the sauce in the sauce.
My city experiencing a transition from penny pinching, maximizing our dollars, multiply triple digits. I came a long way from baby jars in a project kitchen. My city experiencing a transition from penny pinching.
Well, your phone.
You can't do it on my phone, I don't think. And I'm not on Facebook.
Oh, she not on Facebook, so she can't do it. St. James was watching. So you watching.
Your line said Brenda Fluke was watching.
It's gotta be late.
Yeah.
So when I get you started, you can introduce yourself.
My battery power's down.
He got a cord you can plug up to. The one you got a cord he can plug up his battery down, he said. I'm gonna plug over by you, is it? We're probably gonna be in 10 minutes.
15. Okay, so welcome to Fli-City Blackout, and we have the phenomenal members of St. John's Neighborhood Committee, Historical Committee. Okay,
St. John Street Historical Committee.
the street. Okay, St. John Street Historical Committee. Yes, and so at this time, let's introduce yourselves. You can go down the line and introduce yourself, and then we can kind of talk about some of the activities that will be taking place in St. John's neighborhood, and then the initiatives that you have putting forth, and then also Juneteenth. So, starting with you, Mr. Willow.
All right, thank you, Dewan, and thank you for having us today. My name is James Wardlow. I'm president of the St. John Street Historical Committee. And we're here today to educate our brothers and sisters out there about why the committee exists and what our efforts are geared towards. We're here to bring alive the old St. John Street community, to improve the legacy that certain powers have tended to demolish along with the neighborhood. Currently, we're involved in establishing and developing a St. John Street neighborhood community park, which is located down in Massachusetts and Boulevard Drive, where we will be having a street dance, or what you might want to call a block party, on June the 11th. With that said, I won't hog the microphone. I'll pass it down to Brenda, and she can introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Brenda Fluker. I'm the Financial Secretary for St. John Street Historical Committee. Thanks, Fli-City Blackout, for inviting us over. We need a whole lot of participation from all you St. Johners out there. We need y'all to come out and see what we're doing. We're going to be on June the 11th down at the park that's going to be named after us. We got so many things that we're being involved in. We're going to have pavilions. We're going to have playgrounds. We're going to have benches. We need you to come down and see what we're doing and where we are and get an idea of what's going to be happening down there. We need everybody's participation, not just the group and the committee that's up here. And we meet every Thursday, second Thursday of the month at the McCree Theater at 2:00. So come and join us so we can have some input of what went on St. John from the people that know what went on St. John. And we're going to introduce you to Ricky Giss.
Hi, I'm Ricky Giss, formerly also known as Frederica Washington Giss. I'm the Vice President of the St. John Street Historical Committee, and we'd like to invite you to our Block Club party, and we'd also like to invite you to the Sloan Museum for our 51st annual Juneteenth celebration.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, for folks who may not necessarily know the impact of St. John's neighborhood and what it means to the city of Flint as being a transitional community as it was historically, let's provide some background information on St. John Street, some of the activity that may take place during that time, and some of the pillars that come up from that area.
I'll start that off. St. John Street community. I moved to Flint in 1942 with my mother and father, and we moved into the St. John Street area. I lived on the corner of Dakota and Boulevard Drive. At that time, the St. John Street community was a community of Blacks, Eastern Europeans, Mexicans. It was a melting pot, you might call it. We coexisted very peacefully. There were minority-owned businesses. We had our own grocery stores, restaurants, cleaners, barbershops, funeral homes, churches. It was a self-sustaining, vibrant community. Until we kind of grew up, Brenda and I and Ricky, and we got up older, we found out that we had been living in the ghetto, so they told us. The ghetto did not exist to us. We grew up in a neighborhood that we loved, we enjoyed. We had all the amenities that all the other kids in Flint had. We were just relegated to an area that we had to live in. And we couldn't live anywhere in Flint other than the St. John Street community and what they call Floral Park on the south side. Those are the two communities that were set aside for Black people. We as a committee exist today to revive the history and the culture of the St. John Street community and improve the legacy to the public and tell them the real truth about St. John. Brenda might want to answer more. We'll pass it around. I don't want to hog up everything.
Well, as you see, just the three of us, we got a lot to tell, but we know that you got more to tell. We need your input. We had peach trees, we had grapevines, we had all types of businesses, we had all things to grow, we had gardens, but they said that didn't exist. I lived on Garfield Street, down by the river, and there was a rag factory next to us. Most of you don't know anything about a rag factory, but it's still there, but it's something else now. I'm not sure what they call it because I haven't been down there. Well, it was right across the street from where all the wires of consumers are, and you could hear that humming every night. You could also hear the Amtrak train going across at night at a certain time of night. We had the funeral home up on the corner, which was Green's Funeral Home. I think I spent the night with one of the girls that stayed next door. I think it was the Gaines, that they lived right next door to that. It was sort of scary if anybody remember. And then we had Short St. John. I think I was born on Michigan Avenue before I moved on Garfield. At 1221 Garfield, we walked to school. Fairview was my school of choice, which I had no other choice. I also went to Lowell. Fairview, I had a little dog that used to walk me to school every day. And snow days, never heard of it. We walked
No
to
such
school,
thing.
no such thing as a snow day. We walked to school with ice on top of the snow. My biggest adventure, that it wasn't an adventure. I don't like for kids to ride on the back of the bike. I caught my leg in the spokes. It's not a very safe thing to do, but we had other games to play. Like my little grandson is asking me to play hide and go seek right now. You didn't have those things now. Everybody's doing hide and go seek on the computers. I don't know how they do that, but that's a hide and go seek. We had James can tell you about the marbles when we come back to it.
Yeah.
We had fun. Everybody ruled everybody's child. You got in trouble, you was in trouble with everybody. Miss Maniana was one of the Mexican people that lived in the back of us. She pierced my ears. I think she pierced a lot of the kids' ears in the neighborhood. And I'm not going to hog it up. I'll let Ricky put some input in.
Well, my family has been in Flint since 1916. My grandfather started working at the AC plant on Industrial Avenue when it was on Industrial Avenue. My mother was raised in Flint. She started at Clark School, and then they eventually moved to the north side of Flint because they were living on the south end of Flint when they first came to Flint. Some of the people that I can remember from the community were Mrs. Marion Coates, who was my third grade teacher at Fairview School. She was one of the first Black educators at the Fairview School. Also, she is the mother of the former mayor of Flint, Karen Weaver. Mrs. Georgia Heights was one of the community activists in the Flint community. She wasn't what you would call it. She was a politician, but she wasn't serving in any particular office. But she was our go-to person if there was a problem in the city of Flint, on the north end of Flint. Dr. Leach, Dr. Hawkins were some of the doctors in the area.
My uncle.
We had some of the police officers were Willoughby Jones, George Friday, who also owned one of the barbershops in the city of the North End, and he also owned the pawn shop on the city of north side of Flint. There was also the Pabst drugstore, which was owned by Hungarians, but that was one of the places where a lot of the young ladies were employed as waitresses or counter girls, as you say, because they would fix you malts and
Cherry Cokes.
oh,
Cherry Cokes.
cherry cokes. Okay, and we had our own theater, the Columbia Theater, which was owned by the Weingartners, but eventually it was owned by the Watkin brothers. But that was what the theater that we had. We had our own bakery, the Balkan Bakery. It was not Black owned, but the majority of the people that did go to the bakery were Blacks. there were also foreigners coming from all parts of the city of Flint to buy the bakery's products that they had. It eventually moved to Dayton Street, and I guess it fizzled out, but that was one of the premier places to go for your bakery. You could smell bread on Sunday mornings.
Yes.
All over the community.
Yes.
I lived not too far from General Motors, which I hate it because every day when we washed on Mondays or Tuesdays and hung the clothes outdoors, because we didn't have washers and dryers at that time, the sun was our dryer. And we had washers, but they were the type that you would wring your clothes out. And I can remember wringing my hand and arm out several times, getting caught in a washer wringer. So those are things that the children don't know about today. They don't realize the things that we had to do to survive. As Brenda was saying, we had cherry trees, apple trees, pear trees, grapevines, everything that we needed as far as fruit. I don't think we ever bought fruit from the grocery store. If we did, it was a lemon maybe. But the rest of the items that we bought are grown on trees in the neighborhood. And the only crime that we really had was kids stealing apples and oranges from other people's trees and stuff like that. Our family never really locked their doors. I never had a key until I got grown. We never had to lock our doors. And as Brenda said, parents were everybody in the neighborhood. If you did something wrong, your neighbor could chastise you. They could also let your parents know what you had done. Then you would get a second chastisement, only it was worse than the first one.
And we didn't have cell phones either.
No.
And whatever you were doing over on that other street, it beat you home. When you got home, mom and dad already knew about it.
And they had telephones that were party lines. So if they called, some of your neighbors already knew about what was going to happen to you because they were on the party line listening to what that person told your parents. And so, as he said, the actions that we committed were already talked about before we got home. So sometimes I was afraid to go home because I knew what was going to happen.
But see, that's what we're talking about here. This is what our committee is all about: bringing these memories forward and maintaining these memories and that culture and that history of our forefathers, our mothers, and our fathers, our grandparents that lived in the St. John Street community. And they lived in that community because they couldn't live anywhere else. And they made good in that community. We had high achievers in that community. As Ricky, she mentioned a few of them, and there was, we had former mayor, Mayor Stanley. He lived right across the street from me. We had Dr. Raymond Gist, who was a nationally renowned dentist. I went to school with him.
He happened to be my brother-in-law.
And Ricky's brother-in-law, of course. And I think Miss Judge Bivens, of course.
Miss Odell Broadway.
Odell Broadway, Elsa Papp, who was Mr. Papp's sister. She was a judge. And so many achievers. Athletes came out of that area, statewide, nationally known. Baby James Parker, he sparred with Ali.
I have a brother that was a champion boxer, Auburn Copeland, and he boxed. He was a bantamweight boxer. He boxed in the Golden Gloves, Olympics, and then worldwide. He boxed in Australia, the Philippine Islands.
Benny McCombs.
Yep, I was glad.
Benny McCombs, he was a national champion. Boxer Paul Wright, Herb Odom, Leon Watkins. I could go on and on and on. A lot of notables and achievers came out of the St. John Street area. One of the ladies I was most in love with at a very young age was Miss Coates, and Ricky mentioned her as she was my third grade teacher. Pretty woman. She's the first black teacher hired by the Flint Community Schools. And she came in school one day and told all the young fellas in the third grade that she was getting married. And it devastated us all. We were so upset. Miss Coates is getting married. Why did we think it mattered to her what we thought? But we love Miss Coates. And again, Ricky mentioned that Miss Coates was the mother of our former mayor Weaver.
And she was married to Dr. T. Wendell Williams, who Williams School was named after, and he was one of the first blacks on the Flint Board of Education.
And my father, I don't know how I forget to mention this in our other interviews and so forth, but my father and uncle owned the cleaners on St. John Street called the Renew Cleaners. It was right next to the RG Club. You know, when you start talking about other people, you forget about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I forgot the fact that I used to work in that cleaners at 11 and 12 years old that my father and uncle had. But there were so many establishments up and down St. John Street, bars and clubs, and people came from all over Michigan. I can say that came up from all over Michigan to enjoy the nightlife. Flint was known as a jazz city at the time. We had a bunch of notable jazz stars come in and played at the different clubs and so forth. So when you hear about the St. John Street area now, people tend to, especially the people that we've been talking to in the different agencies, they tend to think of St. John Street area as impoverished, squalid neighborhood,
No.
the poor homes, rat
Like
shacks.
that.
It was not like that at all. It was a very self-sustaining community of hardworking people.
Mhm.
And what the city of Flint and state of Michigan with 475, what they did to that area was brutal.
Yeah.
They came in and took those homes through eminent domain. They destroyed our generational wealth. You know, you see
No
kids
money to
growing up,
move.
you know, the parents work hard to pass something on to their children.
That's right.
They worked hard to pay for their homes and everything. But then when the city and the state and Buick, General Motors came through and just bought out the whole area. I shouldn't say bought out because they didn't pay market price.
No.
And all those people that had paid to own their homes now had to go out and find another mortgage, which they still wanted. The establishment still wasn't giving out enough mortgages at the time. But they had to find another mortgage, go back into debt. Consequently, they had nothing to pass on to their children. That destroyed the generational wealth. A lot of them couldn't even afford to buy another home. They had to move into public housing. So all this is what we as a committee is about to bring that history back and keep that history, make people, our young people, understand that your forefathers and mothers, they worked hard with what they had been given, which was not much. And they made a good, vibrant living in the St. John Street community.
We were survivors. Survivors from what we fixed, what we cooked. We could put a neck bone on and eat off of it and some beans for a minute. I mean, a minute. We had all them other little foods that everybody ate, like chitlins, hoghead cheese, hot mouth, and otherwise. We did our greens, we did our cabbages, we did our oxtails, which you'll be able to see in our new calendars. We had all of those different things going on. The games that the kids would play, the hopscotch, I think we used to call it bombardment, where you would throw the ball and hit some dodgeball. I think it's
Dodgeball now.
dodgeball. Yeah, it's called dodgeball.
Put in volleyball there.
Yeah.
Bombardment.
Bombardment. Yeah. We had talent shows. They don't have any programs after schools anymore. We had talent shows. We had skating. We had different block parties that was going on. This is like what we're trying to do from 6 to 8 on June the 11th. So don't forget to come out so you can talk about what we got going on or what you remember. You have a chance to speak about everything that we can't remember for you.
Okay, Brenda was talking about the foods. Most families had gardens. They didn't have to rely on a grocery store, but we did have grocery stores starting with Saul's Market or Shaw's Market. We had the St. John Market, Bokers, um, Himmelhawks, and Fisher's Market.
Rick's.
Yeah, that's where you
Rick's-
work.
Rick's.
That's where I work. Rick's
And
Market.
the St. John Beer and Wine. So we had grocery stores over in the area. A lot of people complain about not having fresh produce. Well, we did, and they didn't cost you an arm and a leg. Brenda was alluding to like neck bones and oxtails. Right now, oxtails are probably $9 or something a pound. You could get 3 pounds for $1. Back then, you could get neck bones 3 pounds for $1. We had potatoes and everything, so we ate very good. We had very nutritional menus, although it was not the greatest meat. Chicken was something that was reserved for Sunday mornings or Sunday afternoons after church.
But we had a guy that would wring the neck and cut your chicken's neck off for you, do the feathers all off, boil the feathers off of it. And we had that man that could do that easily.
And another thing, since they're talking about eating, we had our meals together. It was a
Yeah.
family thing
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
You know, breakfast and dinner, the whole family sat down and ate.
Come on now.
There was no such thing as something on that table that you didn't like.
There was no such thing as sitting in front of a television
No.
eating your
If you
food.
didn't like it, you didn't eat.
Come on now. I
And
know
no
about-
negotiation.
Right, you didn't
Yeah.
say go
And
to
what
the
was
mouth.
put on your plate,
You ate
you ate
everything.
everything.
It ain't no going to 2-3 different places.
No.
Nah,
No.
that don't
No,
work
no,
like
no,
that.
no.
In one pot, and you ate from that pot.
Right.
Greens, beans, whatever.
Pigtails, pig feet.
You know,
Yeah.
and we'll go back to what you and I were talking about, Dewan, prior to the podcast here, about how we worked.
Yeah.
My first job, and I remember very distinctly, was a grocery delivery boy. At Saul's Market, I had a little red wagon, called a Red Rider. That's what it was called. And I would, on the weekends, on a Saturday morning, I would go up to Saul's Market, park outside with my wagon. People would go in and do their shopping.
Mhm.
Then they come out, and I'd offer to pull their groceries home in my wagon.
That's right.
They pay me 25 cents, 50 cents, whatever.
Right.
You know, no negotiation on
Mhm.
price, whatever you want to give me.
Yeah.
You know,
You
and that's where the work ethic started.
you was appreciative of getting
Exactly.
and being an earner.
Hmm.
Yeah, also you contribute to the community there too.
Absolutely.
You're helping out the elders, or women by putting the cards to the home. I think that's the mindset that you all had. You all put together. Like you said, some very profound things, and it kind of made me think back to what's going on today. Like when you said about the eating. Whenever we prepared, we had everything in our neighborhood. Like we had fruit trees.
Yeah.
We had all the different things. The guy down the street who can break the chicken neck, take the feathers off, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
be able to, make sure you get all together.
Now they had
Yeah.
fast food places like
Hot
hot dogs and
dogs.
red dog, hot dogs, hamburgers.
Red Dog, Coney Island.
Miss Kelly's hamburgers.
Mm-hmm.
They had things like that. So we weren't without what do you call
You had those out. You had those options.
options, right?
But nowadays, when you look at it, there's no fruit trees. Even when I was a child, I used to see like the trees, the berries on the trees, even if they were poisonous. We had those in our neighborhood. Nowadays, you go into the neighborhood, you see no trees bearing no fruit
And they were abundant. I mean,
everywhere.
They were everywhere.
Yeah.
Plum trees, peach trees, apricot
Peach
trees,
trees, I
grapevines, cherries.
Well, a lot of the trees and things that were there before we got into the neighborhood because the Eastern Europeans came over and they were farmers.
Okay.
So they planted these trees, but then as people came from the south, they continued to grow and take care of these trees. So
Mhm.
that's why we have fruit. Nowadays, you can't go into a neighborhood and get an apple or orange off a tree.
The wine was plentiful because we used to take the
Oh, yeah.
cheesecloth in the
And
big
stomp the
white
grapes.
pan and stump the grapes. It's a big white pan with the ring around it. I remember everybody probably it's a dish pan.
Mhm.
We put the grapes over in there. We do our little feet thing, and our feet was clean. And we did. It was
yes, I
homemade
used
wine.
to see that when they had the big bucket, metal
Yep.
bucket, you just kind of put
Yep.
your feet in. That's cleaning the apples.
It was doing the mashing up the grapes to make the homemade wine.
I don't remember.
Oh, we
Yeah,
did
but they
that.
had crock
We didn't
pot.
do
They had
that.
crock pot.
My grandparents did that.
That's right.
I
That's deep right
I'm
there.
not saying they didn't. I just say I know.
And then they poured over this cheesecloth thing that
Oh, I
just
remember,
strained it, right?
Okay, and not to be belittling, but we also had a red light district in the north end of Flint,
Okay.
which a lot of people say, well, there was some crime, but it was maybe centralized in that area. But there was a red light district, so
Okay.
and it was called Michigan Avenue, north of
This was
Lee Street.
here in Flint.
Yes,
Michigan
yeah,
Avenue
yeah.
was the west boundary of St. John
Yes.
Street area. Now I'll tell you about Michigan Avenue. When I was a paper boy, I had a lot of jobs. Okay? But when I was a paper boy, on Fridays and Saturdays, I'd love to come pick up my money on Fridays and Saturdays on Michigan Avenue.
Yeah, I know that. you
Yeah.
like to,
Because
you like to get out there.
some of the
Michigan
prettiest
Avenue.
women in the world
Yeah.
would come to the door.
Now
But-
I need to know about this red light district. Right.
No, you don't.
I
Well,
want
that's
to know.
part of
Only,
it.
A lot of people don't
the
realize
only
that
Michigan Avenue I know is over there going southwest of Detroit.
Okay,
no.
now let me.
no.
I'll
Michigan
tell you a
Avenue.
story about it when he gets through.
Michigan Avenue ran from Garfield, where she grew up.
Mhm.
Okay,
That was on the southern end of the St. John Street community.
got you.
And it ran all the way up to Vermont, just north of the St. John Street Center, just north of Massachusetts.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, as Ricky mentioned, the area north of Lee Street, from Lee to Vermont, was a red light district.
Well, it was actually to St. John.
Yeah,
because
to St. John.
To St.
yeah.
John Street.
Okay.
My grandfather.
But, now here's another. I just want to
Go ahead.
Here's another really interesting point about the St. John Street community, and I've mentioned this before. There were several clubs in the St. John Street area, particularly Joe's Tavern. Now, it wasn't an elaborate club; it was a bar. It was a bar. But in this bar on the weekends, you would see lawyers, judges, doctors, pimps,
Okay.
gamblers,
All right.
the whole shebang,
Yeah.
the whole community in one place, having a good time,
Yes.
enjoying each other.
Mm-hmm.
And when the bars closed, everybody went their own way,
Yeah.
without incident, without fight, without argument.
Mm-hmm.
There was no
Anyway.
shootings or anything
No,
like
none of
that. We had some of the most famous, like the RG Club on St. John was one of the most famous clubs in the city of Flint, in the west side of, well, they say west side of the town of the state. But there was also a lot of professional musicians that came out of Flint.
Right.
Yeah, I used to hear about them. They was telling me, talking about how David Ruffin used to be around here. And
Oh, all the big stars
All the
came
big
in.
stars. they
Malcolm
came
X
here.
used to be around here. I'm like, oh, here in Flint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we had what we call our community center, the St. John Street Center.
Mm-hmm.
That was the hub of our nightlife for the teens and the young adults. We had
Come on
skating
now.
there,
Of course.
arts and craft. We had talent shows.
Mhm.
We had
Dance.
dances and some of,
Basketball tournaments,
right.
because I was in those weird.
They had
Time
double-A basketball. So
Yeah.
Tom Thumb weddings there and at the church.
So there was a lot going on, but the St. John Center, they had a playground behind it where there was basketball in the summertime. They had some of the premier tennis players in the city of Flint.
And
Mhm.
we
Came
had
out of
some
that.
knockdown, drag out football games between the north side and the south side.
Yep.
No equipment,
Mm-mm.
tackle football behind the St. John Street Center.
Yeah, you already
Didn't
know.
have the
And-
scoreboards.
And we played hard, man. We played hard.
No, you got to.
No equipment. As a matter of fact, your grandfather was part of that too.
Yeah.
Capers. Oh yeah.
Really?
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
Capers is his grandfather. Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Campus is-
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
They talk about it. I just love hearing stories because
Oh, yeah.
I guess, hearing all that, everybody living in the space that they're living in, you was in the area, you took care of one another.
Yeah.
Right.
And they tried to, some of the people that you talk to would try to say that there was a rivalry or some animosity between the south side and the north side.
They do though.
We had friendly competition.
Mhm.
Okay.
We would have our basketball games, the north side against the south side, northern against central. We'd have our football games behind the St. John Street Center. The north side boys on the north side chasing those girls down, and the south side boys on the north side chasing our girls down. So it was a
Yeah, we had fun.
a friendly
Yeah.
existence.
My grandfather took me, he'd always go trick-or-treating for Halloween. We had fun. We didn't worry about putting pins in the apples.
So
None of that kind of stuff. A lot of people gave out pennies for Halloween candy and stuff. Instead of giving out candy, they give out pennies. My grandfather he'd wrap a big fat clock up around his arm so he could get us home on time. He'd dress up in the costumes. We'd have our costumes on. And talking about a red light district, we went one place in the red light district and knocked on the doors, and they didn't want to come and give us anything. They didn't want to put out, as my grandfather would say. He made us soak the windows.
He did.
So we had fun.
we had our track meets in the streets.
Yeah.
We had our bicycle races from St. John to Boulevard Drive.
Mm-hmm.
We would roller skate in the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We roller skated at St. John's Center at Fairview School. And I suppose, I'm not sure about Roosevelt, but that was the other school in the neighborhood. But the kids skated all around. Everybody could skate, basically.
Oh yeah.
Kids nowadays, they don't get to do a lot of those things.
Inline skates, whatever that is.
Yeah, inline skating, but we had roller skating. You could skate on the street or at one of the facilities.
You know, while we talking right here, somebody could call in and put their little input in this Fli-City Blackout.
That's right.
I don't know why y'all ain't calling and telling us something.
Right.
You could just give us a little bit of tidbit of something that you remember
Yeah,
on this
there are
podcast.
1,000 stories like this.
Yeah, it's a lot of stories.
But what we're pushing towards, we're having this little block party meet and greet on June the 11th. But August the 12th at American Legion is our annual St. John Street reunion. And we're looking for this one to be the biggest ever. We want all St. John people, their children, their grandchildren, or if you just knew somebody from St. John, you might have worked with a lot of people that had St. John connections. Come out. We got hot dogs, free hot dogs and drinks and potato chips. And just have a good time.
And we're still looking for pictures. We're looking for pictures for our annual calendars that we do. We've got some of the calendars. We might still have some of them with all the pictures in them. We've got items that we'll be trying to sell that's got St. John Street in it. Just come out so you can have some memorabilia. That's how you say that?
You did pretty good.
Okay.
Okay, we also invite you to the St. John Street Dance because we want you to get familiar with the Memorial Park that we're trying to get off the ground. And we want you to know, a lot of you lived in that area, you knew about the Massachusetts Dam. It's still there, not in the best shape, but it's still there. So come out on June the 11th from 6 to 8 to see what's going on and what we're trying to do to revitalize the neighborhood.
Down by the fruit market. All y'all remember the fruit market, wasn't it? Right there on the corner of Nevada, Dorter Highway and Stewart. Come on down there. We had a fruit market. It's right in the area where the fruit market was. They sold good fruit.
And also the area that Ricky just spoke of has now been officially renamed to the St. John Street Memorial Park.
Oh, that's interesting.
We're hoping to put statues down there of some of the famous people that were in the area. Hoping we might want to try to start with Miss Odell Broadway that ran the Breakfast Club, she set up the breakfast thing, home economics and everything.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, we served the kids that were coming in the mornings that they would have a breakfast to make sure they started off a good meal and start the day off.
She was the first lady of Fairview School in the St. John community.
So what schools came from St. John?
Fairview Elementary
and Roosevelt.
and Roosevelt.
Okay.
The three major buildings in the St. John Street community were the St. John Street Center and Fairview and Roosevelt schools.
Roosevelt was the high school?
No,
No,
Elementary.
Elementary.
Junior high, we had to cross the river
and go to
to
Lowell,
Lowell Junior High.
which
It was
that
over on
building
Franklin.
still stands, but it's not utilized. But
Yeah.
that
Bad
Lowell.
shape.
Business.
it's been
And
bad
at
shape.
that time, we only had
Still
two high schools, two, Northern and Central, of course.
And one of the most famous things that we did was Thanksgiving Day. We had the Northern Central
Wow.
rivalry football game.
I
Big day.
think Central won most of those.
Big day
No.
during your era.
Your
During your
era.
era.
But during our era, it was Northern.
I knew we would get that out of there.
But
That's
the
why I
biggest-
did that.
The biggest
Vikings
defeat,
and the
the biggest
Indians.
defeat of ever, I think it was 1959, when Central beat Northern 51-0.
Oh my goodness, the Indians just whooped y'all. But
That was
y'all
one of
used
the
to,
first times.
A
y'all
day
used-
that will live in infamy.
yeah, but y'all used to bring chickens and hang up on the flagpoles and all that stuff.
Yo, who you talking to?
See, that was in her
The
era.
Vikings,
Oh,
the Vikings.
I was an Indian.
I was a Viking and an Indian. So.
No, that's actually, just even hearing it, I just think that's just like amazing, right? And they talk about the history of Flint and how can we preserve that history, right? So that our children, grandchildren, generations that's coming up beyond know about the impact of St. John's.
And that is what this committee is all about.
Okay.
Bringing this history forward. The St. John Street community once existed as a vehicle to once a year have a reunion, bring St. John people together so we can reminisce and so forth.
That's right. All that.
A couple of years ago, when it was announced that the city had sold the St. John Street Center
Mm-hmm.
to a marijuana processing company,
Right.
and they referred to that sale as the Police Academy.
Mhm.
That told us as a committee, that really ticked us off and raised the hairs on the back of our neck. These people don't even know what the St. John Street community was about. They don't even know that that center was built in 1952 as a community center for the people of the St. John community.
And it was the last standing building in the St. John era or area. And they really didn't know. The people, the powers that be at City Hall didn't know that building, well, that center existed. They had to go back and look up
From what,
information.
yeah, in our
And
meetings
maps.
with different agencies, and these people would sit around the table and we would tell them what we're saying now.
Yeah.
They say, "Oh, we didn't know that."
And it's the same
Yeah,
thing with
and
our
that's
children
what-
and grandchildren. They don't know a lot about the history because they weren't raised over there. My children were raised over there until my youngest one was 3 and the other 2 were 6 and 8. They have no knowledge of what went on over
Yeah.
there. They were just there. And when we moved away, they lost all contact with the St. John area. Although one went to Fairview and Williams School.
Oh, shit.
The oldest one went to Fairview and Williams School.
Mhm.
But they have no knowledge. And we're trying to make sure that they remember where they came from.
Take some pride in what their parents and their grandparents, how vibrant a neighborhood they developed with what they had to work with.
You know,
Brenda did.
that reminds me of where we are today as a culture. You know, and me, I used to sit at the feet of my grandfather.
Mhm.
And I was telling you how he talked about how he was an electrician, he was a plumber, he had an 8-track repair shop. His name is Alan Beatty. And so they stayed on Newell Street. And so he will always talk about, I guess, the grind of, having 10 children and, and the neighborhood was all one working together. But they would pass those stories down. And then, like you said, you want to set your children up. He wanted to make sure they was knowledgeable of everything that he knew so that they can take it farther and beyond. Nowadays, I'm not sure if families are not getting together and being as strong or passing that knowledge and information down to these younger ones. So then that way they're astute to what's going on, where they come from, right, and the lineage that they're carrying on. So I see that overall just with young people today.
I do
It's
too.
a tragedy.
I
Right?
do too.
And I'm talking even my peers, like they don't know nothing about St. John.
They don't know anything about etiquette either.
They don't know anything about their own families.
Right.
They don't know about their own families.
See, and that's where it
That's
We
starts.
don't even have family reunions.
When you start talking about, I asked one of my cousins, we had a little family gathering at my auntie's house. This was last summer. And I walked up to him. He's a young man, about 18, 19 years old. Yeah. And I asked him, Did he know who I was? He said, no,
Yeah,
but
man.
I knew who he was.
That's right.
I said, your grandmother
Right.
and my mother were sisters.
Right.
Sue.
Mhm.
He said, who's Sue?
Hmm.
That was his grandmother.
He
See
didn't
what I'm
know.
saying?
He didn't know his grandmother's name.
That's deep.
Grandma was her name to him. That's all he knew. He didn't know that her name was Sue.
Is it a thing of not asking those questions? Because I asked those questions. To my
I did
grandfather.
too.
I asked it to my
Yeah.
grandmother.
We talked.
We talked. Like my people from Mississippi. So I, of course, go down there 2-3 times a year. And they from Edwards, Mississippi, and Jackson and Vicksburg. And so my grandma would talk about, she's Cherokee, so she'd be
Right.
talking about all these different things and giving us, some history lessons. And my grandfather would talk about, the struggle that he came up in, and the family members. We used to go see family members in Chicago and Champaign, and we used to be all around. We come up with Muskegon, and he would stop at these places. We were all riding down to Mississippi. That's an 18-hour ride.
Mhm.
That's like you know what? That is a long ride.
Oh,
And
yeah.
as a child, I used to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah. We
Now
used
riding
every
in the
year.
car, it's like,
Every year. we used to do
we
it.
there, yeah.
I
But
could-
we used to stop and see all our people on the way.
That's right.
Tennessee.
And another interesting point about those days, not your days, but my days.
Yeah.
I could always tell when we were about to take a big trip because the night before, my mother was in the kitchen frying chicken, making
Yeah.
ham sandwiches,
Yeah.
putting them in packing them shoe boxes
Yeah.
because we could not stop at a restaurant and eat.
Right.
Going south, there was nowhere you could stop and eat.
Mm-hmm.
You had to go to the bathroom. You pulled over the darkest place you could find on that trip, and when you got hungry, you said, "Somebody give me a piece of chicken from the back seat."
Well, it was because of the segregation and things
Exactly.
like that. But we had that in Flint also. It just wasn't well known. There was bars and things that blacks could not go to in the St. John Street area. For instance, the Nevas.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't go to that bar. The White Eagles Club on Industrial.
On
They couldn't go.
Industrial, right across
couldn't-
from Trio, yeah,
They couldn't go to that club.
the beer ball.
The beer vault. Well, they did start going to the
Later
beer vault
on.
later on.
Yeah.
Mm.
But we had across the tracks, which is our sister neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's where your father came out of, that area,
Yeah.
Shelby Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me this: do you think because maybe it was segregation that we were, more connected to each other? Do you think that's the case? Because segregation was taking place and you couldn't do all these different things, you couldn't go in these different areas. Was it more prone for us to stick with each other because we had?
There was systemic racism.
Yes, systemic.
So
Flint in the 40s and the 50s was known throughout the country as one of the most segregated communities in the United States.
Right. And that's why we were relegated to these two areas to live in. We couldn't live across Saginaw Street.
but I think that's its beauty in that, right? Just
Right.
like the ham bone concept. How we used to share everything.
Right.
We all together then.
That was the culture.
That was the culture, right? We're
Right.
not trying to move out here to Grand Blanc, Burton, all these different places.
Oh, that wasn't gonna happen.
No.
Nah, we
Miller Road wasn't gonna happen.
but I think, once we was around in the vicinity of each other, right? And we were all dependent on one another, like that's where we were at our best.
Another thing about that, in one of the other interviews, one of the interviewees mentioned that we were because of segregation, we were forced to look out for each other. I didn't buy into that premise. Simply because Black people in the South had always looked out for each other. It was part of the culture. They took care of each other. Somebody was lacking, somebody else took up that space.
Mm-hmm.
And in watching the 1619 Project the other night,
That's deep.
that's what they talked about,
Mhm.
was the culture of the Black people taking care of each other.
Mhm.
And it just proved to me that what I was thinking was true. During the migration, the so-called migration, when people started moving up from the South in search of jobs in General Motors factories.
Yeah.
not only did the blacks come, but the whites came too.
Uh-huh.
And they brought with them their prejudices to this area. I mean, there was some prejudice here, but the majority of it came from the South during the Great Migration from the South. And that's why this industrial area, Flint and surrounding in Detroit and so forth, became the most segregated areas in the country.
I think people don't talk about that enough.
That's right.
You talk about the Great Migration, you just think about us coming from the
Yeah.
South.
No,
coming up here
All
to
the
North.
whites came
For
too.
whites, and we've had conditions where there were riots. Like we had a riot. The young people, some poor whites from the east side of Flint, were throwing bolts and things at the children that were going to school at Lowell, and there was kind of like a war, a little race war in the I think the 50s.
Yeah.
Because I remember Bob Brooks. They were going to Lowell, and they came from
Yeah, Bob
northern.
and I were in the same class.
They came from all over because there was a fight because these poor whites from the east side of Flint were attacking teenage or young adults.
Uh-huh.
Really?
Yeah,
They egged somebody's house was right across the river where was a black family living. Well, in my era, they egged their house. They did really stupid
but
stuff.
that was the first time that blacks had moved over into that area on the east side of Flint.
So
So we've had some little race wars, but they were minor scuffles that I don't know. It came out okay but it was because of these poor whites that were working at General Motors. They had to come through a black neighborhood to go to work, but then they wanted to take advantage or belittle the black kids, and the kids wouldn't take it, and
that's
so
right.
it caused a little friction between the
Yeah,
two.
It was like Lyndon Baines Johnson said. He said, if you can convince the poorest white person that they're greater than the richest black person, they won't even recognize you stealing from them.
And that's what's been going on this whole time.
Exactly.
Like, and that's I think so for us. What would be a message to the people of today? Like, how do we get back on, I guess, being really solid with each other, even though that we are in this transitional world? How do we get back to that unity? And I'm talking about true unity. Even in this community right now, we're the majority in the city, but we so disunified.
Mm-hmm.
What is it going to take for us to get back on track?
It's going to take conversation
Trust.
and education of our young people, and to somehow, and I don't know how we do it, to protect our young people from the prejudices and the biases of the older people.
And maybe
If
with this committee coming together and teaching them about where they came from,
Mm-hmm.
they'll be able to get back together with their families, because
Yeah.
a lot of families are scattered and broken,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to start communicating with our families again.
Yeah.
I've got great nephews and nieces that I don't see unless there's a funeral or
I know. It's
Yes.
terrible.
Right.
Terrible.
and they live right here in the city of
Oh,
Flint.
yeah.
But this black club party that we have
Okay.
on June
Come on,
11th
Come on,
is
talk
gonna
to
bring some of this together. We're gonna have hot dogs, we're gonna have hamburgers,
Yeah.
we're gonna have water, real water,
And,
good water.
and maybe we can instill some pride
Yeah.
in these young people.
Yeah.
Last year at the College and Cultural Center, Juneteenth Day,
Mhm.
we had I saw these young white boys. They were walking by our booth
Yeah.
and they were picking up our souvenirs and everything. And I stopped them.
Mhm.
I asked, why do you want that?
Right.
They said, oh, because it's a souvenir. I said, souvenir of what? What does it mean to you? So I took a few minutes to explain to them about the St. John Street
Come on.
area
Come on now.
and told them what had happened there.
Come on.
And that's why we were here today.
Mhm.
That's why we have Juneteenth Day.
That's right.
And they said, oh,
And he had no idea.
no.
We gotta get the anger out of them, because a lot of the old pictures that the movies that they see, they just get angry about them. And we got to bring them forward to see that we had good times.
Mhm.
We had fun. It wasn't none of this lynching, killing, and all of that stuff. That was way, way, way back in fact. We passed all of that.
Mhm.
We were better than that.
Right.
We did our own thing.
Mm-hmm.
We survived.
I grew up with a lot of white boys, my friends, and Mexicans. We coexisted. We had fun together. We played together. We played sports together.
Mm.
And it was beautiful. There was a hint of racism at that time, but it wasn't as prominent now. These people going crazy now.
It's
Our
like
politicians are pushing this.
yeah, and they do it more, like you said, systemically
Exactly.
through putting racism structurally, and like it's not plainly like in the face anymore. It's like they'll do these things like
Behind your back.
CRT, right?
Mhm.
Don't even teach you about history because white people feel offended. And how would you not talk about history because of one group of people, one person is offended by some stuff that their ancestors done?
I had a friend of mine admit to me about 3 years ago
Mhm.
that he finally understood what white privilege meant.
Yeah, but it took him all his life to figure it out.
But it was not his fault. He was born
He grows up benefiting from it.
white, so he had no reason to think that he was getting all these good jobs and everything else just because he was white.
Right,
Because that was it.
right.
But then he finally, per our conversation 3 years ago, he finally realized, oh, all these things. He said, I read and I talk to people now. He mentioned about black people going into the stores
Mm-hmm.
and how the clerks, part of their job was to follow those black people as long as they were in the store.
Oh, yeah.
He said he didn't know that.
Hate had to be taught.
Yeah,
You
that's what I said.
wasn't born in there like that.
Yeah.
They had to be
He knew
taught.
that he was getting some benefit. He knew
Uh-huh.
how other folks being treated. See,
Right.
that's the thing when sometimes it's like when you benefit from something or when you got an advantage, you got leverage, you be scared to give it up.
Exactly. Exactly. So you
Why
don't.
would-
So
you
you don't
just-
recognize it.
You just pacify it.
Yeah.
and everything. So those are the things when we're saying challenging our counterparts. Saying like even during the Black Lives Matter movements, right? We got a lot of allies that come out and want to be part of the protest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is one thing about being a part of the protest. But the real work is what we gonna do to change the system.
That's right.
And like white folks created racism. They created these structures. Black folks didn't create this stuff. We're gonna put the game up against us. So it's up to them to tear it down and fix it. Yeah, we can be on the front line. We're gonna talk it all day long. We're gonna demonstrate. We're gonna get upset when our young black people getting killed in the streets. But at the end of the day, it's up to those who created the rules to the game to change. So
Right.
that's the force. And if they ain't talking about that, I don't be want to hear it.
Exactly.
It's a waste of time.
That's right.
It's just steady making small strides and increments. And we have came a long way. So I can't even say because there's a lot of people that gave their life and sacrifice for what we are today.
Oh, absolutely.
But we got to make historical change. And that starts with forcing the issue with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's
In
what-
that 1619 project, it was all mentioned that the black lady said to her son or somebody that this country, I belong here as much as he does because I came over here with him.
Yeah.
And simple fact, it's very simple, but that's a fact. Although we came over slaves on the ship, but came over with that white man at the same time.
And
So
some
this
of,
could,
Some
Some
of
of
them came before them.
right.
some of us was already here.
Right.
Yeah.
We can't
Oh, it's
forget
been
that
crazy.
fact.
Yeah.
We can't forget the fact that we've been here.
With the Spanish, a lot of them came
Yeah,
over.
we was original people. We
Yeah.
are the original.
So I don't know how they're gonna say they found this. You didn't find somebody already had this.
It's
Where you
already
coming
here.
from?
But that's what they drive in school. When we was in school, I was so upset when I found out about Christopher Columbus because my teacher told us that, yeah, Christopher Columbus discovered America. When you understand
You
the
can't
fact
discover
that
something
he
that's
wasn't
already-
even looking for America. He actually went the wrong way and came up and people was already here.
He was lost.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, why would y'all tell us this nonsense? And it's trickology. So now we think like this.
And now it's coming to light.
It's coming to light, but they don't want it to come to light.
That's
That's
why
why
they
they
trying
trying to
to-
stop it in Florida and
Yeah.
stop the.
That's right.
All that
It
trick.
is.
Exactly what they're doing that for. The
Yeah.
CRT, critical race theory.
Yeah.
It's like the thing is we are waking up, and I like what we're talking about knowledge because we do have to wake up. We gotta these young people have to be educated. I teach at the school, and so when I ask them deliberately, what you think about the history of black folk? Or how do you feel like our history started? They would tell you they started in slavery. Not even realizing that slavery was a fragment of time.
Exactly.
You
A
don't
lot of
know.
them don't
You didn't
real-
learn about nothing before because it's not being pushed. It's not being talked about.
Exactly.
We
But
don't talk
they
about.
don't realize that blacks are everywhere in this world.
They don't realize that.
They don't
Yeah.
realize that. They think it's just in the United States and
That's right.
Africa. They don't realize that South America has as many blacks as enslaved. They
There's
had
no
slavery
more.
down there.
South America's more black,
Black.
than
Right.
than,
But they
yeah.
don't realize that Mexico has a lot of black population.
Mexican black. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a lot of our blacks are from the Mexico area and Southern California and
Mm-hmm.
New Mexico and Arizona.
Yeah.
But they don't realize that. They think, oh, well, those are Hispanic people. Something. No, the
No,
blacks
those
were
are
there. The
You look-
Indians
if you-
and blacks were there
right.
Yeah, you're right.
before.
The Spanish American
Mhm.
War, with Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Mexico was fighting with the United States
Mhm.
because of slavery.
Mm-hmm.
They were telling black people to come to Mexico. You be free in Mexico.
Mm.
America did not want them going to Mexico. That's what the Alamo was all about.
I was gonna say that's the
Mm.
Alamo.
They talk about Jim Bowie and David Crockett, heroes of the United States. They were fighting for slavery
Mhm.
to protect, to keep those people, enslaved black people, from escaping to Mexico.
Our kids don't know anything about Jim Crow. It took me a minute to try to understand what he was talking about, Jim Crow. We didn't have Black history in my day.
We
Nothing.
didn't either.
No, you didn't have that in school.
And they're still stymieing and not trying to teach it
Yeah.
in high school. Now
we
they
had
want
we had three characters:
Oh,
Booker T. Washington,
George Washington.
George
Carver.
Washington Carver, and Little Black Sambo.
right.
That was it.
Sally, Vic, and Jane.
And they were all white.
They were
And
black.
Spot.
And
Yeah,
Spot.
Spot. We had a dog named Spot.
Nah, you know what? I think this is rich, right? I really appreciate even a history lesson, and then it also actually inspires, right, to continue to keep putting the message out there. Right? We have to be educated. The
Yeah.
only way that when you talk about even the slavery days, the only way that they were able to rise above it because they got educated what's going on. They wasn't ignorant to what was being done to them. And so, like, we want that for our young people. We want them not to be ending up in prison all the time or feeling like their opportunities are very slim, or just because, hey, we black, we start with a short end of a stick, right?
They need to take on we're already in the Sloan Museum. Look at that history that we got going on over there.
Mhm.
Like I say, when you come down here June 11th,
Mm-hmm.
so you can get to this block club, be able to talk about the stuff that's been happening, the things that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they'll be able to learn a little bit then.
You'd be really surprised at how little knowledge that the white race has in the black race.
Right. They don't want to learn.
The minds are
Minds
closed
closed.
to history.
Yeah.
They don't, if you tell them that the richest man ever in the world,
Mansa
Black
Musa.
man.
Mansa Musa.
Oh boy, they don't know nothing
They-
about Mansa.
Exactly.
But you know what I did? So I teach world history too.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the whole top. That was the topic of discussion. Mansa Musa was the richest. I don't care if it's Steve Jobs. Y'all might know all these other folks over here.
Couldn't hold stick to it.
Elon Musk. They didn't have a penny compared to that man. That man changed the economy wherever he went.
Exactly.
That's
Flooded it
amazing.
with gold.
So flooded with gold, and everybody was good.
But they never even heard of him.
No.
I hadn't.
When I learned about that, brother, like that's how I envision us, right?
Yeah.
You know, even if we don't have the finance like that, right? We need to be moving like that.
And he was generous.
That's what I'm saying.
He wasn't a billionaire that kept trying to get more billions. He's giving it away.
It makes moments.
He was going to all over the country, the world,
Yeah.
giving it away.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. See, so
They trying to learn a little bit when they did the science stuff with Black Panther. They trying to get there.
they get there.
It's trying to teach
Shout
them a
out
little
to-
bit.
Shout out to all of us that's getting there, right? I
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
want to make sure we
Yeah, but it's
encourage
a
each other.
lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
That's why we need everybody from St. John Street to
Yeah,
give us a little
But
bit
the
of
children are
input.
becoming more progressive.
Yeah.
because they have access to
A lot more.
everything, right?
Yeah.
So street dance, right?
Yeah.
So,
So we have the street dance June 11th, that's Sunday, from 6 to 8 at St. John Street, Memorial Park on Massachusetts and the Boulevard.
Right.
West Boulevard Drive.
Right. What can we expect there?
We can expect a lot of people coming together, reminiscing, just like we're reminiscing here.
Right.
Also, we can expect, what I expect to do is to meet with a lot of people that are not aware of what we as a committee have been working on for the last couple of years, and educating them to where we are, what we want to do,
Yeah.
and how we want to do it.
Yes, sir.
And that's what I expect.
Okay.
And I expect it to be a prelude to our St. John Street reunion.
And they
Come
should
on.
also expect to have music to dance
Come on now.
and enjoy
They love
themselves,
to
and
dance.
some food.
Old-fashioned
and drinks,
street dance.
Old-fashioned
Okay.
street dance
Yeah.
that we used to have out in the middle of the street, but we're gonna have it on that Memorial Park like we used to have it.
So,
And eventually, we're not gonna be out at the old pavilion. We're gonna have our own pavilion. We're gonna have a playground going on. We're
Come
gonna
on.
have benches and everything
Yeah.
from all the different churches. We're hoping that they'll come in and give us a bench with their names on them. We're looking for maybe putting down the bricks, not the ones that's downtown. And
I
people
like
may
that.
be coming in and asking to have their name from their family put on those
I like
bricks.
that. I like that.
We're looking at a lot of stuff. We're looking at putting a mural
come on.
on the Lee Street under the bridge
Mm-hmm.
of everything that went on St. John Street.
And we're also looking at having MDOT rename a portion of I-475, the St. John Street historical,
Right.
St. John Street
They are.
community from Garfield Street to Stewart
Right.
Avenue. We want to have, and they've said that they would do that for us when they redo 475.
Yeah, because
So-
they are the reason through eminent domain
Right.
that neighborhood was
Was
done like
this-
that. And
They-
that happened in
Right.
a lot of urban communities all around the country.
They
That has
can't
been
make
the
us
plan.
whole, but
No,
at
they
least
can't
they
make
can,
us
they
whole.
can recognize
Right.
what has been done to us
But not even just recognize.
and to bring it forward.
And let people know where we were and what happened to us.
Mhm.
How we
Where we're
were
going.
displaced.
Now, here's my pitch.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make my pitch now.
Mhm.
We have a development plan
Okay.
in place.
Okay.
We have been awarded some grants.
Yes, sir.
When I say we, I mean the St. John Street community and the city of Flint,
Okay.
to the amount of $1,750,000.
That's a
Okay,
start.
so get started with it.
Yeah.
We encourage anybody that wants to contribute
Mhm.
to this function
Mhm.
and what we're trying to do. We have, and I don't know if you can zoom in on this or not, but we have a fund set up, a memorial fund, that they can contribute any amount that they would want to contribute to the development of the St. John Street Memorial Park.
They
Would
got
be-
the QR
It
code on the
would.
back of
got
it.
a QR code on the back. We can get some more cards if anybody wants it. You keep that card if you want.
I'm gonna keep this. Okay.
Okay, and that park is gonna have statues. It's gonna have street names of the streets that were in the community. I think there was 31 streets
Yeah.
named in that community. So we'll have those. We'll have statues. We're gonna have kiosks with the history of the community
Come on now.
and what was going on of some of the prominent people in the neighborhood, some of the prominent athletes in the neighborhood. There's just so much that's going to be down there that once they get down there, they can read about the history, because telling them doesn't seem to be getting through to them. They need to see it. So we're going
They'll
to
be able to talk about the old games that the children used to play. That's going to be in the playground area, and trying to bring it forward to see how they can look at the same type of games on their computers. Might even make a game out of it one day.
Our intent is to have the playground area for the children, as Brenda mentioned, with a historical theme
Mm-hmm.
about the area.
Yeah.
And the St. John Street area, educational as well as a playground.
We need your input, St. John people. We need
We're
your
moving
pictures.
forward.
We're getting there. We're not stopping.
And I think that is the key. That is the thing that you're not stopping. You're spreading the information and you're staying activated. I appreciate you all for continue on the drive.
We appreciate you getting us started in the parade a few years ago.
Yeah,
That was something. I think it lit us all up.
you know what?
It got us started. You've been hanging in there with
I'm
us.
hanging.
We appreciate Fli-City Blackout.
I'm hanging, and I'm gonna continue to hang. I think our part as far as the younger people,
Yeah.
or the generation that's here now, is to stand on the shoulder of the giants of the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to take this on. So I'm listening, I'm taking it in, and I want to continue to take it in and be more knowledgeable. So I'm spreading that out everywhere I'm going. So you got a lot of the young people kind of tapping in, and they like, wow, this is history. Right?
Yeah, we need for them to carry it on
31
because some of
streets, I
us
know
are
what 31
80s,
streets
70s. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I think that is key. So we want, furthermore, we want folks to come out Sunday, June 11th, and I'm gonna type that here in the chat.
Okay.
From 6 to 8 at St. John Memorial Park. You will hear more information. You'll hear about the new developments. You can talk with some of the residents that used to live there, right, of this great 31st Street area, right, that's been here in the city. It's a golden jewel. We want to make sure that all the young people out there engage in the street dance, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We call it a block party, but the elder leadership said it's a street dance.
Street day.
We'll
That's what
probably
we
be able
we
to
gonna
show
start
you
it.
some of them dances that we
Come
used
on
to do
now,
long
Mom, that's
time
what I'm
ago.
like, come on
No
now.
problem. Y'all just renamed them to something else, like the bump, like the four corners, like Y2C and all of that.
Yeah.
Y'all just named it a different name.
Yeah, but
It's
like
same
my
thing.
grandpa always said, it's like, ain't nothing new in the sun, man. Everything is remixed.
Evolution,
We did this
revolution.
already.
It's been there, done that.
Yeah, no, that's what's up, though.
It's good.
I'm excited.
I've been excited for quite a while now.
Of course.
This is
Of
close to me. I like this, and I like what the committee is working towards, and working as a group and as one body. We'll get it done.
We asking for kiosks to be all over the city. We want to spread out so everybody know what's going on.
Reverend Thrillfield is on here. He said he speaks a lot about St. John's.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And he was talking about.
Now see, he came late.
Okay.
I like to tease him about it. He came to the St. John Street area in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
I came in the 40s.
Okay.
When we first started moving to the St. John Street area as a group, as a whole.
Okay.
He has good memories too. And like I was going to say, there's 1,000 stories. What we talked about here is just a drop in the pan.
We need
So we
y'all's
can get these
input.
people to come and give us their input and their pictures and relics and things.
We got documents going on. We're gonna be booked. We might have a book
Oh.
before you know it.
And by the way, before we
talk about your calendar every year too.
our calendar and Michigan Productions, run by Rodney Brown, is doing a documentary on the St. John community, and he has done tremendous work thus far. He's been all over the country studying how this happened in other communities, just like it happened in St. John Street, Tulsa. That was a bombing in Tulsa, but if you go to Indianapolis, St. Louis, Atlanta, all these byways and toll roads and freeways went straight down through the black community.
Yes,
In
it is.
Detroit,
Black Bottom, yeah.
Did nobody know what the song said? They dropped a bomb on me.
So it was a coordinated effort by the establishment.
Yeah.
To reload the highway system was a good thought. The interstate system, but they took all right down through black communities.
They dropped a bomb on
The
us.
intent behind it was terrible.
Yeah.
So I have to definitely say, it's something we're gonna continue to fight on too.
Yeah. So
I definitely appreciate you all for coming out and dropping bombs and knowledge, right? Insight, right? And letting us know about how we can contribute and support St. John's.
Gonna see a lot of these.
You're gonna see a lot of those markers along the way. So we'll be looking for them. No, that's the logo. They can see that. And we'll definitely be down in Juneteenth, and we want to encourage all the community to come out to learn something about the city of Flint. learn something about St. John's, and then also continue this message well beyond what we're doing at Juneteenth. Just need to carry out for the rest of our lives.
Very good.
So I appreciate it. So you got any some last standing words you want to leave?
I would
Our
just like
audience
to thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank you
allowing
so
us this avenue here to get our message out.
You got
And
whatever you need.
hopefully it'll reach some people that haven't heard what we're doing
Mhm.
and bring them forward to assist us in what we're trying to do.
You
And
might
they-
want to
they-
bring your own seats and chairs when you come down there on June the 11th.
Yeah, right.
But I know a lot of them be walking around talking, looking at the purple shirts that
Come on.
we'll have on.
Come on now.
That's got all the addresses, all the streets
Yeah,
on the
right.
back of that shirt.
Yes.
And those people that are members will have on white shirts. So if you got any questions you want to talk to them about,
Mhm.
just walk up. And we'll probably have a mic down there so you can get up and talk.
That's right. That's right.
And we just thank everybody for listening. Share it with others so that they will know, because some people may not know about this. Please share it with others so that they will come out and share their stories with us,
That's right.
because their stories and also their pictures. If they have old pictures, we would love to have them bring them out so that we can take copies of them
Mhm.
for our calendar and also for Rodney's
Wow.
documentary that he's doing.
Rodney will scan those pictures right there with us. There'll probably be more so on the 16th.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He'll scan the pictures and give them right back to you. You won't have to lose your pictures at all.
That's right.
And you might see them in the calendars later on that
Right.
we do every year.
On a t-shirt.
Yeah, or on the t-shirts. We're getting there with the t-shirts. Just let somebody know you want one.
Come on now. Come on. It has been a blessing, and I thank you all for continuing to spread the message. And we look forward to Juneteenth. And let's bring it back. I mean, we can kind of do a post after the celebration.
Okay.
Or we
Yeah,
can do another
great.
session leading up to the celebration, right? We just keep sharing it out.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you
Thank you
much.
for
And thank
having us.
everybody for tuning in. Thank you.